Welcome to the 2023-2024 NBA Deep Dive Series, where we're going from every single team from worst to first, from lowest rated to highest rated. And today we have the Atlanta Hawks. And the Hawks are in what I want to call a clarity season, because last year they finally made the change at head coach, again moving on from Nate McMillan, who had a pretty good run, but spamming the pick and roll option with Trae Young and Clint Capella over and over and over eventually gets old, and you have to have some of the guys come along for the ride, and this team just did not perform up to their standards and expectations, once again falling to 41-41. But just like under Nate McMillan, Quinn Snyder led the team to a 13-15 record, which is about as close to 500 as you can get without being there. So this team is kind of stuck in Siberia. They're not really sure how good they're going to be. Their superstar has serious limitations on the defensive end. Then they blew up the future of the team to trade for DeJounte Murray, sending out 3 first-round picks and some other assets. And then it turns out he's not as good of a defender, point of attack that everybody thought that he was. He still can't shoot the three all that well. He's not as good of a playmaker as Trae Young is. And overall, he just doesn't fit the bill for what the team needed, which was a two-way player. This is one of those teams that could really benefit from an OG Anunoby coming over here, giving them two-way defense, stretching the floor, letting Trae Young play make, but scoring 20 points per game in his own right. So the Hawks are in a tough place right now, and they were just stuck with a lot of expensive contracts and eventually had to do away with some of them. John Collins, I'll talk about in a second. Then they brought in Saddiq Bey, who's going to be up for a contract extension. DeAndre Hunter just got his. DeJounte Murray got his. And then Kevin Huerter, they had to let walk. Well, hindsight 2020, they probably should have kept Kevin Huerter and got rid of Bogdan Bogdanovic. But let's talk about this offseason where there's only 2 notable losses, but they're pretty big. First of all, John Collins is gone, and they effectively traded him away for a giant $20 million trade exception so that if they want to go out and match salaries, they have $20 million to play with in a future potential trade. That means that this offseason might not be done yet for the Atlanta Hawks. A serious point of reference for what this team is going to be doing in the future, but in doing that, they had to give up John Collins for basically nothing. They got Rudy Gay, who I think they waived immediately, and then they got a second-round pick for John Collins, who I understand was having a bad year, but this is what those good teams do, and that the bad front offices don't understand, is that you never trade a player when they're at their lowest, when they have the lowest trade value possible. And when John Collins is coming off a career worst year where he shot horrible from the three-point line and completely had his usage rate cratered and saw his stats across the board go down, you don't say, okay, well, it's time for John Collins to go, especially when he's locked up for the next 4 years plus. You say, no, we're going to keep him. He'll come off the bench. We'll make sure that he fits in a role, looks good, balls out, and then we trade him away for 3 first-round picks like DeJounte Murray. Instead, the Hawks have given up first-round picks for DeJounte Murray when he was looking good, found out he wasn't as good as it advertised, and now John Collins is gone for nothing. So effectively, the Hawks are one of these teams that is going around everything backwards, and that is why losing John Collins on its own isn't a big deal, but it's the way that they lost John Collins. That's what they gave up, or rather, they didn't get in return for John Collins. That's a disappointment to this offseason. Aaron Holiday, a sneaky good player that is going to be gone. He's one of those great veteran minimum signings that's going to shoot 40%, be a decent defender, be a decent point guard 3, really solid depth, but they are bolstering that in Kobe Buffkin for their first round pick. Now, I don't understand the process of drafting your point guard 3 when you already have a point guard 1 in Trae Young and you already have a point guard 2 in DeJounte Murray that you're playing at the shooting guard role because they decided to trade for a point guard instead of a wing player. And now their first round pick of this year is another point guard. So that's a little frustrating, but then they have some really good depth. Mohamed Gay, not to be confused with Mohamedou G, spelt the exact same way, is looking really impressive out of the summer league, and they instantly signed him to a 4-year deal. Really excited to see what he offers to this team. And then they'll be picking up Wes Matthews and Patty Mills, a couple of reliable veterans. But let's go ahead and talk about this Atlanta Hawks squad, starting with none other than Mr. Trae Young himself. And he is a closer. Now, he was selfish as hell a lot of the times. Is that because he's a victim of the system that Nate McMillan was running, where he has to run the pick and roll 47 times a possession and there's no other offense being run? Is that because that's just who he is? Is it because he was raised to be Ice Trae, not Mice Trae? But he's starting to get the label Coach Killer. People don't want to play with him. His teammates get worse when he's there and play better when they're on different teams. So there's just a little bit of concern to worry about. His shot has also completely fallen off, and he keeps getting further and further back from shooting because he's just too short to elevate at normal 3-point depth. That being said, He is an incredible passer. Purely the passing skill, the ability to get the ball from point A to point B, I think his accuracy is uncanny. It's up there and being the best in the league. He'll hit shooters in the pocket. Reading defenses and making the right basketball play, that's kind of where he tends to struggle, hence his 4.1 turnover per game career average. And the fact that he doesn't get these all-star selections, even though he's averaging almost 30 and 10 every single season, it's because he's a turnover machine and doesn't contribute always to winning basketball. He struggles, and now that his shooting is starting to fall off a bit because he's jacking up too many three-point shots, his percentages plummet, his efficiency plummets, his turnovers plummet, and even though he puts up 25 and 10 or 30 and 10, you say, I don't know if that contributes to winning basketball, especially because he is a defensive liability. Honestly, his defense is hilarious to watch. If you just focus in on him for a game, whenever his man catches the ball, he's immediately looking for a switch or looking to help, because most of the time he's trying to cover the guy who sits in the corner so he doesn't have to do anything on defense. And if his man catches the ball and he has to switch onto somebody who's actually good, like a Jimmy Butler or whatever, he's immediately saying, where's my help defense, because I am a liability on this end. And a lot of times he gives you no effort defensively. That being said, he's got really good hands on the defensive end. He can read passing lanes. He can steal the ball well, surprisingly. And ever since the head coaching change, he actually tried on defense, which was a surprise to me because for the most part, he's not going to be a good defender. He's just so short. He's so petite. But if he just tries on the defensive end and he makes it look like he gives a shit about winning basketball, his teammates are going to be there to help because they have a great length and defensive team around him. And that's really all you can ask for Trae Young, being the superstar, running the entire team, being the closer. Can you try on the defensive end? Because offensively, he's fine. He's a top tier foul baiter. He can get up free throws with the best of them. He's masterful at getting the shot up before the defenders can block, going off the foot, switching hands, putting up these uncanny timings on his floaters so that nobody knows when to jump up and block the ball, which is why his pick and roll game was so lethal. But that's what his game is jack up an awful three from 35 feet out, or drive and lob the ball to Clint Capella so he can throw it down, or put up a floater. His game is very simple, which is why he's masterful at it, but he also has his deficiencies. So that's where Trae Young is going to be coming in, getting that 88 overall. It's not like he's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, but when I see guys put like an 85 overall on him, you're underrating him. But at the same time, is he one of those guys who belongs in that top tier of Damian Lillard 90 overalls? I just don't think so. Another guy who has to prove it this season is DeJounte Murray, because they gave the farm up for him. Let me just look up the actual trade details for DeJounte Murray. So they gave up Danilo Gallinari, which was part of their power forward depth, and Danilo was actually really good for a couple seasons before he dealt with that ACL and is gone. I think he's on, God, what team is he on now? Is he on the Celtics? Anyway, he still has NBA basketball in his future. A 2023 first-round pick, which was protected from Charlotte. No idea where that is. A 2025 first-round pick. A 2026 pick swap. So if the Hawks are worse than the Spurs get the better of two picks. And a 2027 first-round pick. And the Hawks got DeJounte Murray and Jacques Landale, who they immediately got rid of, who now is a backup center for the Rockets. So really, 4 first-round picks plus a backup power forward in Danilo Gallinari for DeJounte Murray, who was mid last year. He was mediocre. He was a starting shooting guard and the backup point guard when Trae Young sits. And by the second half of the season, he really solidified running the backup unit well, which is all fine, but he's got to be a starter and the co-star to Trae Young. That's why they gave up so much for him. Now, he did develop a lethal mid-range game, shot 46% on shots from 10 to 16 feet, 48% on 16 feet to the three-point line. His mid-range game was almost automatic, but he's just not a great defender like he was promised. He wasn't a two-way guard that they were expecting when they got DeJounte Murray in the trade. He plays passing lanes well, he's disruptive, but he's more that free safety defender who can jump lanes than be a point of attack defender, which is what they were desperately looking for because Trae Young is not a defender, obviously. Now, DeJounte Murray does have really nice touch around the rim, but that deep shot has got to improve. He shot 34% last year, which was kind of in line with his career average. Rookie year, 39% on low volume, 26%, 36%, 31%, 32%, 34%. So despite having one good year on low volume, other than that, he hasn't been a good three-point shooter, which is a liability for this team, which when he's not a good point of attack defender either, and then the other guys are Sadiq Bey or Jalen Johnson, who are not good point of attack defenders either, you can see why this team has so many weaknesses on the defensive end, and he was supposed to fix that. And on top of all of his skills, he is a goddamn bonehead. I won't understand why he was trying to punk rookie Paulo Banchero in like the offseason, and then he was trying to punk a referee in the playoffs that contributed to them losing valuable points and possibly losing the game. Like, what are you doing? You used to be a San Antonio Spurs, the epitome of class personified, and he comes to the Hawks, he gets unleashed, and he was not great. So this is going to have to be a big year for DeJounte Murray because he's starting to be in a lot of trade rumors. I know that the Hawks gave up 4 first-round picks for him, but like I said, this is going to be a clarity season. And is the team ready to build around DeJounte Murray as a superstar, or are they going to look to trade him and go in a different direction? Moving on is Mr. Saddiq Bey, who came over for 5 first-round picks. Kind of a weird trade. It was the James Wiseman, Gary Payton Jr., Saddiq Bey, 5 first-round picks, and somebody else got thrown in that trade too. It was just a massive 5-team trade. But Saddiq Bey, 3-point marksman, and Detroit tried to groom him into an offensive weapon, a 3-level scorer. He just could not find consistency in creating his own shot. He can shoot the ball well, catch and shoot in transition, but he can't make, facilitate, and create, and he is a bad defender. He looks really good when you simplify the game for him, though. If you tell him to shoot, drive, or pass, he's money. 54.8% of his shots were 3-pointers after the All-Star break, and his addition to the Hawks alone boosted the team 3-point rating from 34%, 22nd in the league, to 36%, 16th in the league. But he's an awful defender. DeJounte Murray, not a good point of attack defender. Trae Young, awful defender in every metric, and Saddiq Bey's lack of defensive ability, both physically and mentally, is part of a problem of when his shot isn't falling, he's a minus player and they have to go in a different direction, and they don't have a lot of two-way help. So Saddiq Bey is one of those spots that you'd like to improve upon, but you don't hate having him out there because he is so good from the 3-point line. Moving on is Mr. DeAndre Hunter. And we always talk about Trae Young or John Collins, or we used to talk about Cam Reddish and all these young guys that the Hawks are starting to build with their core. And we never discussed how much of a disappointment DeAndre Hunter is, because he was the 4th overall pick. He's starting to enter his prime and he's regressing, and you can't even blame injuries, even though that was kind of what held him back after that Eastern Conference Finals run. He came back, was healthy, and didn't play well, and then continued to not play well the next season. Now, theoretically, he's the perfect NBA player. He's got the size and the agility and the ability to be a lockdown perimeter defender, and he was against the New York Knicks when they had that epic back and forth battle. He was shutting down Julius Randle, and he was shutting down whoever else was there. Derrick Rose, RJ Barrett. Theoretically, he's a catch and shoot weapon. Should be a 40% catch and shoot 3-point shooter in the corner, and he should have developed some playmaking ability, but he really has not, as evidenced by his only 1.4 assists per game to his turnovers, which is 1.2. I mean, he's basically a 1-to-1 assist to turnover guy. And it's frustrating because he's one of those guys with all the potential in the world to be anything, to be the next OG, to be the next Jaylen Brown. He just needs to keep improving his game, and he is still young, and he is signed to that Supermax extension, so he's going to be around for the long-term future. But he's got a really bad handle, and he's got really bad help defense that has gotten better in the last season. He really improved his off-ball help defense, basketball IQ overall, and I feel like having Coach Quinn in the building is going to help him upgrade his game. Maybe he can turn into and develop to be in the 3rd star for this team. And he's got a really good mid-range jumper that he can continue to work on, hopefully expand his offensive arsenal, because this team needs it while they need his defensive effort to return to form, because he used to be an all-NBA defensive 2nd team kind of guy, but last season his defensive rating was 119, the year before that 117. It's like, DeAndre, you can lock people down. Just do it. Moving on to Clint Capella, who's old reliable, which is a little funny to say, 29 years old at this point, but the injuries have gotten to him now. Clint Capella is a defensive standout, probably the best lob threat in the NBA. If I can think of anybody else that's comparable to what Trae Young and Clint Capella is, they're right there, top of the league, the prototypical rim runner, rim protector. When I talk about guys who are like 6'10", 6'11", can't shoot the ball, can't do anything offensively, can't play make, can't pass, but they can lock you down defensively, protect the rim, and catch the lob, I'm always thinking of Clint Capella. He's got gravity in the offense. He sets really good screens. He rolls well. He anchors the defense, anchors any weaknesses given up by Trae or Bogdanovich. But injuries have just completely ravaged Clint Capella's career. You look at everything that he's had in his lower bodies, in his knees, in his back, in his ankles. He's had every injury possible that a big man can suffer. And he might be on his way out because he's on an expiring deal. I think next year is the final year of that extension that he signed. Onyeka Okongwu is coming right for that starting job, and doing a valiant job and was a top 10 pick when he got drafted? So the writing is starting to be on the wall for Clint Capella. It's not that he can't do it, it's that they're looking to move in a younger direction. And like I said, this is a clarity season for the team. Trae Young, Supermax deal. DeJounte Murray, extension going to kick in. Saddiq Bey, up for a contract. DeAndre Hunter, max extension, getting overpaid. Clint Capella, contract-ish year. So we're going to start to see what direction this team is going to go as we move on to the next 5, starting with Patty Mills, who we know who he is. Classic Patty, 3-point shooter, undersized, defensive liability, tries his ass off, will hit clutch buckets, will ball out in the Olympics for Team Australia. Patty Mills is just a really fun player to root for, but he's starting to get up there in age, and if you're looking to rely on him for anything other than 3-point shooting, it's a problem, and I feel like this was the wrong direction to go for this team. The 3-point shooting is kind of okay for the most part on this team. What they need is defense. What they need is two-way guys, and Patty Mills is only going to give you one way, and that's knocking down the 3. Moving on to Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Bogey is a bucket. The Atlanta Hawks fans are going to complain about him taking away touches from the younger guys always, but he's an efficient 10 to 20 a night every single night. When he's healthy, he can carry your offense and be clutch for you. Oftentimes, he'll be the only offensive weapon when the team is struggling. Trae Young is shooting 1 of 12 from the 3-point line, and Bogey can go and get his from the mid, from 3. He's graceful and nimble despite all the injuries when driving. Now, he does have horrendous defense, and honestly, I feel like every player in this team has horrendous defense. It's the kind of culture that they're building here, interestingly enough. But he's out there to be a sniper and occasionally put the ball on the floor to bail your team out, and he can do that. The problem with Bogey is that he's got to stay healthy, and his contract extension is going on for another 3 years with a team option on the 4th year. So he, like DeAndre Hunter, is locked in for the long term, but he's not reliable. Is he going to have another season where he either starts injured and tries to work his way back into shape, or finishes the season injured and has a nagging injury and then shoots 30% from the 3-point line? Bogey is always having the same problem year in, year out. Have I told you the definition of insanity? Up next is AJ Griffin, who had a really good rookie campaign. He was a big-time shot maker, shot nearly 50, 40, 90 as a rookie, hit 2 game winners, and he's not really great at everything else. Playmaking, putting the ball on the floor. He's a turnover machine. He can't play defense all that well. He has a lack of side-to-side quickness, and he doesn't have a great basketball IQ. And overall was just a minus defensive player last year. Defensive box plus minus -0.5. Defensive rating 119. Assist to turnover ratio was 1.0 assists to 0.6 turnovers. But you got to look at him. You got to say he was a rookie. He was out there 72 games, which he was a bit of an injury concern. And he shot 39% from the 3-point line, 46% from the field, and 89% from the free throw line. And you look at those numbers and the offensive versatility he adds to your team, and you say he's got to be part of our future, because he was one of the few bright spots of the last year. I know he kind of fell off in the second half of the season, hit the rookie wall, and his defense was a problem. But AJ Griffin is here to stay, and he's a good player to build around for this future for the core. Moving on to Jalen Johnson, and I feel like we're kind of in the exact same place we were with him last year as we were after his rookie year. He's just kind of this weird guy who can do a little bit of everything. He lacks true athleticism, but he has the size, so you can call him a power forward or a small ball 5. We need more time to see how good Jalen Johnson is at the game of basketball. Now, he does have to get that shot going. Too many open threes. He either turns down or he shoots 28% from the 3-point line, and that is just not NBA caliber. If you shoot 28% from your career, you're gone. Now, he does have really good size and even better playmaking, as evidenced by his 1.2 assists per game. He's got an uncanny vision of the court and is a good passer. He's a good finisher. He improved on his touch from last season. Really nice playmaking, averaged 2.2 assists per game after the All-Star break, so that game continued to improve. But defensively, he struggles. He can't really sit in the chair. I don't know what it is about either his knees or the way that he walks around, but he doesn't sit down, squat down, and say, you're not going to get past me. He is a blow-by liability on the defensive end. Now, that is improving, and last year he was actually a positive player according to the advanced analytics, and per 100 possessions, he gave you 1.7 steals and 1.6 blocks. This is what I'm saying when he's kind of a weird guy. He can do a little bit of everything for your team. We just need to continue to see him develop, and boy, does he need to get that 3-point shot up. Moving on to another bright spot and possible potential starter once Clint Capella gets traded away for another second-round pick in Onyeka Okongwu. Now, he is an undersized 5, and he may not look strong, but he is a force. He's got that country strong on it. He's an incredible shot blocker given per 100 possessions. His blocks were 2.8. He's a strong rebounder per 100 possessions, 14.9. He's a good roll man and even stretched out the three a little bit a la Isaiah Stewart. Didn't shoot great, 30%, but the fact that he's adding that to his arsenal is making him more versatile as a player and possibly offer him more roles in the starting lineup because he's able to pull out the defender to the three-point line. It feels like with Clint Capella getting up there in age and injuries and Onyeka Okongwu starting to flourish and his contract coming up, you try to trade away Clint Capella, you sign Onyeka Okongwu to a contract extension and start him as your rim running five of the future. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They're just looking for the right trade package. Of course, we'll have to ask Landry Fields that directly, but Onyeka Okongwu has been developing nicely for this team. And then moving on to the next of the next five, where we have Kobe Buffkin, the first round pick. And I was not a fan of the pick, more of fit than the actual player, mostly because the Hawks' two best players are already point guards. What are you going to do with another first round pick who, like, let's just say best case scenario, Kobe Buffkin hits, he turns into a superstar point guard. Now what? Now you have 3 point guards on your team. So it's just frustrating. And there were some rumors that he was going to be shipped off to Toronto. I would have liked to see a trade package with either Pascal for John Collins or an OG for John Collins flip, just something to get this team shaken up, get a new face that's going to help this team defensively. As for Kobe Buffkin personally, he's not a natural facilitator evidenced by his 4.6 turnovers a game in the summer league, but he's a good defender. He's got really nice foot speed, lateral quickness. He's got good arm length, overall athleticism and instincts. It just looks to me that the game was running way too quick for him and he just could not get a grasp of when to exert himself. He started a game 1 for 9 from the field and was just jacking up shots unnecessarily, not even passing the ball, just dribbling 17 times like James Harden. He would throw the ball and commit ugly turnovers leading to the fast break going the other way. He has no right hand when he finishes. He's a bad reader of defenses, and honestly, the point guard position isn't his natural position. To me, he seems more of a DeLon Wright, Terrence Mann, kind of a combo guard who can fill in for some backup point guard minutes if needed, but his primary responsibilities are going to be defense and energy and getting that three-point shot up. So Kobe Buffkin, sort of an interesting pick there in the first round. But next up is Wes Matthews, who I do like bringing in. He's the last of a dying breed of older guys who are supposed to be 3-and-D, but are neither three-point shooters, shooting 31%, or defensive specialists. Last year having a defensive rating of 114, which was actually pretty good. The year before was 116, and he was decent for the Milwaukee Bucks. But Wes Matthews is going to his age 37 season. Is he going to offer you too much more than catching and shooting the occasional three and doing the bow and arrow celebration, being a leader for the team, being a positive force for the locker room, and just telling these guys how to play basketball? I don't really think so. I think he's got maybe 1, possibly 2 seasons left in his legs. He's always been a variably healthy, compact guy, but I just don't really know what he's going to offer to this team moving forward because he doesn't play on-ball defense well. He's more of a team defender. He doesn't play make for you whatsoever. He's just a catch-and-shoot guy on the offensive end. So that's Wes Matthews. Now on to the other Matthews, Mr. Garrison Matthews, who is kind of fun to root for, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, he's your classic 3-no-D guy, but he just plays with complete fire and aggression. He gets pumped up. He loves to take charges, so even though he's a negative defensive player with a 119 defensive rating, negative 2.4 defensive box plus minus, he's still out there and going to try his ass off and give you energy and just be a great bench guy, be a great locker room guy. And from the three-point line for the Hawks in the 9 games that he played, he shot 40%. So that's all you can ask for from Garrison Matthews is depth and floor spacing. Moving on to Mohamed Gay, not to be confused with Mohamedou G, spelled practically the same way. And I gotta say, I was impressed with his tape. This dude was ridiculous. And they locked him up for 4 years immediately after watching his summer league tape. And I can understand why. He's 6'11". He's a good athlete. He's got incredible size, wingspan, verticality. His bounce and then his second bounce where you jump, land, and then jump immediately after is unreal. When he was putting up offensive rebounds and layups and fighting for the ball, he was more athletic than everybody out there on the court. His shot form looks crisp. And I know he shot 27% from the three-point line. I know he shot 67% from the free throw line. I know he shot 48% from the field. But he looks good when he's out there. And the shot form looks good. He hit the three-pointer at a decent clip in the summer league. And I just think he has so much potential. He could play the 3. He could play the 4. He can play the 5. And I understand completely why the Hawks didn't even say, you know what, we're going to sign you to the 2-way deal. We're going to sign you to the next 4 years under team control for the final 2 years club option because he is an impressive prospect. He reeks of Giannis, if I'm being honest, as a prospect. Just a crazy athlete who needs to develop his game. We'll see what they do with him. Moving on to Bruno Fernando. And I've traditionally made fun of Bruno because he was one of the worst players in the league, and it's evidenced by how often he was bounced around from team to team. He's played in like 3 seasons, and the first one was only in Atlanta, then Boston, then Houston, then back in Atlanta again, and nobody wants him, which is a little funny and a testament to how bad of a player he was traditionally. But last year he was actually okay. He put up decent numbers. You look at his per 100 possessions numbers in the 8 games that he played for the Hawks. I mean, 31 points and 17 rebounds. For the Rockets, it was 16.8 points and 16 rebounds. Offensive rating last year, 118. Defensive rating, 115. He played pretty good basketball in the few stretches that he had, and I can understand why he's locked in for at least this upcoming season to be their center 3, and possibly with the movement of Clint Capella, he could be their center 2, and I wouldn't be upset about that because he's starting to show some development to his game. Still super young, going into his age 25 season. There might be an NBA roster spot for Bruno Fernando and possibly a backup center job in the future. Lastly on this list is Seth Lundy and Miles Norris. They're two-way guys. I didn't see too much with them that was really impressive. Seth Lundy, kind of this pit bull sort of mentality. Looks like Dylan Brooks out there, but less athletic. And Seth Lundy really isn't an NBA athlete at all. He's got the size, 6'6", 200 pounds, and he's an active defender, but he's not good at any one thing. He's a blow-by threat due to his lack of agility. He doesn't give you anything offensively. He's slow. He can't jump. He can't even be one of those toolsy defenders that's like 6'7" with a 7'1" wingspan because he doesn't have that. He's just a guy who tries really hard, shot 39% from the three-point line in college, which works, but he's also a 4-year guy, so he's going to be like 24 going into this season. I just don't see a roster spot for him. And Miles Norris, who looks to me like a less impressive Mohamed Gay out there. He's got the size. He's got some athleticism. Is he a 4? Is he a 5? Kind of a tweener. Needs to put on muscle or figure out if he's going to play the power forward role or the center role for the team. His perimeter defense is bad, but he did shoot 39% from the three-point line in college. So maybe there's something there in Miles Norris on the two-way deal as well. Going on to the coach and culture ranking where they're going to come in at tier 3. And I'm a big fan of Quinn Snyder. I was championing for him to win coach of the year when the Jazz were the first seed in the Western Conference over Tom Thibodeau, just because I think what he did with that team is more impressive. He figured out their weaknesses and their flaws, and he figured out how to compensate for them. He had the defenses basically overplay and funnel the players and the ball handlers and the shooters into Rudy Gobert, and then Rudy Gobert could block that shit. Now, eventually he did get exposed, and Rudy Gobert is not a great perimeter defender and not a modern NBA defender, and that's more of a Rudy Gobert problem than a Quinn Snyder problem. But I think he's going to instill a good culture here. What sort of offenses is he going to run? Is he going to figure out how to balance the egos of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray and DeAndre Hunter and figure out how to transform this team into a winning basketball team? It's all super new, super raw, and he's getting paid like a championship head coach to do so. So we will have to see how Quinn Snyder fares in his full season, but I believe in him. I think he's a heck of a coach up there in the above average sort of tier. GM Landry Fields coming in, replacing, I forget who the Hawks GM was before, but we'll have to see how he does at his job. There's a lot of mess to clean up when we look at that contract screen because Trae Young is locked in until the 2026 season. Is he untradeable? Questionable. Do you want to trade him? Probably not. Clint Capella, 2 years left on his deal. Preferably what's going to happen for him is that he's going to ball out in the first half of the season. They trade him away for 3 first-round picks, move up Onyeka Okongwu, and then sign Okongwu to a major contract extension. DeAndre Hunter, you're screwed. You're locked in with him till the 2026 season on that ascending deal, going to be paying $24 million for whatever he offers you at that point. Bogdan Bogdanovic, you're screwed. You're locked in for at least 3 years. Final year of that deal is a team option, so there's that. And the contract is descending, not ascending in value, so there is that. But he is locked in, and that's a borderline untradeable contract too. DeJounte Murray, locked in until 2027. He's the future of your team. Are you good with that? Then Patty Mills, mid-level exception. Sadiq Bey, contract year. Kobe Buffkin, rookie. AJ Griffin, rookie. Wes Matthews, veterans minimum. And then that Mohamed Gay contract, I'm really a big fan of because I see nothing but upside with him. Jalen Johnson, rookie deal. Garrison Matthews and Bruno Fernando's deals, they're non-guaranteed, which kind of basically means that it's a team option if you want to keep them. Seth Lundy and Miles Norris are on their two-way deals. So, like I said, this season is going to be one of clarity for this team, which is why they're going to be coming in at 42.5 wins, which feels about right, just a tick over 500. Championship odds are pretty high, 7,500 according to Vegas. But are they going to win? Are they going to lose? Are they going to rebuild? Are they going to blow up the team? Are they going to trade away Clint Capella and DeJounte Murray and DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic and sign Onyeka Okongwu and Trae Young and build around them? Are they going to go to the championship or the Eastern Conference championship? It's all up in the air for this Atlanta Hawks team. So that's why it's kind of rough to rate them and grade them, but they are going to be coming in at this 20th spot in our deep dive series. Let me know what your thoughts are about this, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I will catch you in the next one.